The only foolproof way to avoid being shot down while attacking deep behind enemy lines is to make sure no one can see you, to make yourself invisible. On the edge of the White Sands Desert in New Mexico is Holloman Air Force Base, the home of the most radical strike plane ever created, the stealth bomber, the F-117 Nighthawk. A plane so strange that when pilots saw the first one, they thought it was a joke. It's made look like an alien spaceship, but the F-117 is the logical step forward from the F-16, a strike bomber that is invisible to radar.
I'm Major Trey Urso, and I fly the F-117 stealth fighter.
Major Urso's job is to constantly evaluate the F-117.
The F-117 was designed and built to enable it to fly into the most heavily defended areas on Earth. Its design optimizes its ability to get into those areas without being detected, tracked, and shot by the enemy.
The key to its success is its shape, angles and surfaces that do not reflect radar beams.
It was designed so that it could penetrate heavily defended airspace, and any enemy radar systems that might be looking for that aircraft will either be deflected away or will be absorbed by low observable RAM cover. Anytime you've got an edge, you have the potential for a radar to see that edge. So there's some really smart engineering that went into to make sure that those edges are all optimized and as flush as possible to ensure there's no radar cross-section bloom to the enemy radar systems.
Any irregular shapes, such as fuel tanks or weapons, are hidden inside the plane. And because the engines are baffled, the plane is almost silent to anyone on the ground.
Well, hopefully by the time the enemy would hear an F-117, the bombs have already gone off and we're well on our way home.
To further minimize detection, the F-117 only attacks at night and alone.
It's a completely different mindset when you're flying this aircraft. Unlike other frontline fighters, we typically employ by ourselves. We will fly into and out of combat zones on an optimized route that will give us the best chance to get into and out of that area without being detected and or engaged by the enemy.
Because they attack under the cover of darkness, they use night vision to identify targets.
The F-117 utilizes infrared target and tracking systems that basically gives us a TV picture of what's out in front of us. Once we see the general area that we're flying towards, we can then move the aircraft and funnel ourselves towards the target that we're trying to go after. We'll essentially see a black and white picture of the target that we're going after and be able to employ ordnance onto that target by visually identifying it.
When the F-117 was originally conceived, the first priority was to make it stealthy. The result was a design that was incredibly unstable. But using the lessons learned from the F-16, the designers were able to get the strange angular airframe to fly using a sophisticated computerized flight control system.
The F-117 cannot fly without its computers to help it. It's a fly-by-wire aircraft, and without those computers, the aircraft basically doesn't know which way is up and which way is down. When we're in a combat zone and we're focused on getting our weapons onto a target, we're basically on full autopilot, and we let the aircraft fly itself into and out of those heavily defended areas.
Without computers to keep the plane flying, the lone pilot could easily become overloaded with information and miss the target, or even hit the wrong one.
There's no other country in the world that has anything like it. There's no other aircraft flying today that has the capabilities of this aircraft.
The F-117 revolutionized the evolution of strike planes. Its successful combat record has demonstrated the effectiveness of stealth in warfare. But even this amazing plane can't do it all. Like the Harrier, it can't go supersonic, and if seen by the naked eye, it is vulnerable to other fighters as it doesn't carry a gun.
My name's Squadron Leader Jim Provost. I'm a Harrier pilot on 1 Squadron. I've been flying for approximately 12 years and I joined the Harrier in 1994. The Harrier concept came about many years ago during the Cold War. Its design was to be able to take off from very short surfaces, to land vertically in case there were no runways to make use of. And we're talking about a concept that was in the 50s and yet it's still going into the 21st century. What makes the Harrier special is the fact that it can land vertically. It can land on a ship, it can land in a clearing in a wood, which makes it very special.
The reason that the Harrier can perform these incredible manoeuvres is its extraordinary engine system. There are 2 air intakes, but only one powerful Rolls-Royce Pegasus engine.
First point to note is that there's only 1 engine on the Harrier. People often make the mistake of thinking that there are 4, but there aren't. You see through the intake here, this is the Pegasus engine. It's a big engine and provides all of the thrust for the aircraft. If we look down the right hand side, we can see what we call the nozzles. We've got a hot nozzle at the back here and a cold nozzle at the front. Same on both sides, so we have 4 nozzles that take the thrust from the 1 engine. What that does, it provides normal thrust for forward flight, just like any other fast jet. And if we bring the nozzles down, which you can control from the cockpit, that gives you your thrust for your vertical landings and your vertical takeoff.
The plane's entire weight is balanced on the downward thrust of its engine.
When the Harrier comes to the hover, obviously most of the thrust goes from the engine to the 4 nozzles on the fuselage. What we need to do once it's in the hover is control it. The way we do that is by diverting some of the thrust to the puffer ducts, as we call them. We have puffer ducts in the wingtips, puffer ducts in the tail, and also the nose. And what that does is provide control in all axes whilst it's in the hover. If you didn't have that, then the aircraft would just fall out of the sky. It'd be on a pillar of thrust, and you'd not be able to control the roll, or the pitch, or the yaw.
By blasting small amounts of thrust out of these puffer ducts, the pilot can balance the plane in hover and can even use them to perform delicate manoeuvres. He can even get it to fly backwards. But if the Harrier is fully loaded with weapons and fuel, it hasn't enough thrust to take off vertically, so it uses a traditional takeoff but with a much shorter run, just 450 metres. When hovering, the Harrier needs constant pilot input. This is particularly true when operating from an aircraft carrier.
The thing can't hover and land by itself, so there's lots of things that the pilot needs to do. He's got to be able to manoeuvre the aircraft safely over a very small area and be able to land it. So there is a lot of pilot input that you don't get on other aircraft types. This is the Harrier cockpit. It's I think it's fairly basic, but I guess to people looking at it, it seems fairly complicated. Once you know your way around it, it's actually fairly simple. What it has, standard stick for fast jet, and it's designed very much to be a hands-on throttle and stick, so you don't take your hands away from that very often. One control that the Harrier has that other fast jets don't have is this control just by my left thigh, which is the nozzle control. Which is obviously a very fundamental part of how the Harrier flies. Very small control, but apart from the stick and the throttle, that's probably the most important control in the aeroplane. Harrier can go anywhere in the world. It can operate from almost any terrain. It's proved itself in desert warfare, temperate climates, the Arctic. It can also operate from the ship. It can land on almost any surface, and it can carry a large weapon load. We can compete with the very best. We can go a long way, we can go very high, and we can bring precision weapons, which is where warfare is, to the fight.
Like the F-117, the Harrier is getting old, and by modern standards requires a huge amount of pilot input just to keep the plane in the air when they should be concentrating on the enemy. Also, its inability to go supersonic could put it at a disadvantage when up against faster jets. The solution is the F-35, the Joint Strike Fighter, the only aircraft in the world that is both supersonic and capable of vertical takeoff and landing. The plane is still in development, but its designers firmly believe it represents the future of strike aircraft.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Art Tomasetti, United States Marine Corps test pilot for the Joint Strike Fighter program.
In 2001, Lieutenant Colonel Tomasetti achieved a real milestone in aviation history. Flying the prototype JSF, he was the first man to do a short takeoff, followed by a supersonic flight, finishing with a vertical landing all in one mission.
It showed the versatility of the airplane to be able to have a supersonic capability, but still have the capability to land anywhere and take off from just about anywhere it provides you.
The JSF achieved this extraordinary feat due to its unique engine system, which is based on the same principles as the Harrier. The engine has a large rear nozzle that can be directed both backwards and downwards. But it also incorporates a new piece of technology that the Harrier doesn't have, a massive fan just behind the pilot, powered by the engine.
The lift fan allows a tremendous amount of thrust to be harnessed out of the propulsion system and give the airplane a capability to do its vertical part of its work with a lot more payload than we've ever experienced in airplanes before.
The fan is activated when vents open up just behind the pilot. Air is sucked down and pushed out to the bottom of the plane. So together with the rear nozzle, the aircraft is balanced on two pillars of thrust.
The rear nozzle, in addition to pointing straight down, can twist in yaw, which allows the airplane to pivot in the sky and perform 360-degree turns. The airplane can fly sideways, the airplane can fly backwards just by vectoring the rear nozzle.
And while in hover, the plane is controlled by onboard computers.
Unlike previous airplanes, for example in the Harrier, where the pilot has been responsible for controlling the thrust vector and making the inputs required to have the airplane do all those maneuvers, in the JSF airplane, the pilot's just going to ask for go forward, go backwards, turn left, turn right, and the computers now are responsible for wiggling all the parts in the airplane necessary to achieve that maneuver.
The use of onboard computers to help fly a plane is now essential in all strike planes and has totally revolutionized the face of air combat. Computers are now used to fly planes that humans couldn't keep in the sky.